Question: can you legally fight for the IDF in Gaza? The UK government's answer to this question is yes. Others would answer the question no. And the reason for the difference is explained in this post, so please watch to the end. Let me begin by explaining the UK government's position with reference to an exchange between two UK Conservative House of Lords peers. Baroness Warsi, the Conservative Party peer, posed this question to the UK government to ask His Majesty's government what assessment they have made of British nationals travelling to Israel to fight in the Israeli Defence Forces. This question was answered by another UK Conservative Party peer, Lord Ahmed, who is a UK Minister of State. He responded with the UK government's position by referring to an 1870 Act of Parliament. He stated the UK recognises the right of British nationals with more than one nationality to serve in the legitimately recognised armed forces of their additional nationalities. This includes the Israeli Defence Force. Lord Ahmed continued outlining the UK government position. With respect to the current conflict in Gaza, Section 4 of the Foreign Enlistment Act 1870 makes it an offence for a British subject to enlist in the military of a foreign state at war with another foreign state with which the UK is at peace. That prohibition does not extend, however, to enlistment in a foreign government's forces which are engaged in a civil war or combating terrorism or internal uprisings. The occupied Palestinian territories are not currently recognised as a state by the UK. The 1870 Act therefore does not apply in this instance. From this exchange, you can see the UK government is making 3 points to support its legal position. 1. The UK gives a general permission for dual British nationals to fight for another state's armed forces, as long as those armed forces which the British citizen is fighting with is not against a state with which the UK is friendly with. 2. According to the UK government, the 1870 offence does not apply because the offence only applies to states and Gaza is not a state recognised by the UK. And 3. The UK position of what the IDF are doing in Gaza is characterised as an internal matter, a civil war, or combating terrorism, or quelling an internal uprising. The UK doesn't seem to be clear which it is. What you notice about the UK government's position, as stated by Lord Ahmed, is that it does not mention 3 very important points and perspectives. Firstly, there is no explicit argument being advanced in the UK position on the legality of British citizens fighting for Israel forces in Gaza as acts of self-defense of Israel, which is often quoted by politicians of the global north. The United Nations Special Rapporteur states quite clearly Israel does not have the right of self-defense in occupied territories in Gaza. Secondly, in clarifying the UK position of its citizens enlisting in Israeli forces and fighting in Gaza, the UK government has not engaged with United Nations General Assembly resolutions from 1974 and 1982, which together allow the Palestinians the inherent right to struggle against colonial domination, including armed struggle. UN General Assembly Resolution 3314/1974 affirmed the right of self-determination, freedom and independence for all peoples under colonial and racist regimes or other forms of alien domination, and affirmed the right of these people to struggle to that end and to seek and receive support. And UN General Assembly Resolution 3743/1982 reaffirmed the inalienable right of the Palestinian people and all peoples under foreign and colonial domination to self-determination. It also reaffirmed the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for liberation from colonial and foreign domination and foreign occupation by all available means, including armed struggle. What is informative is the UK government's position sets Gaza as an internalised matter for Israel to deal with, quelling a civil war and dealing with an internal uprising. Both characterizations of Gaza would certainly be at odds with the UN General Assembly's resolutions. The remaining characterization of Israel's actions in Gaza and the strongest legal justification of Israel to use force in Gaza is said by the UK government to be combating terrorism, the destruction of Hamas and the recovery of hostages taken by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups on the 7th of October 2023. But again, this legal justification to use force in Gaza to combat terrorism seems to fall away given the comments made by those in command and control of the military as to their intent behind the operation in Gaza, which is either, it seems, a complete destruction of the Palestinian people, with reference to Israel's leaders invoking the biblical account of Amalek, or a complete displacement of Palestinians from Gaza into the Sinai. And it is an important point to note that the only success to date in recovering hostages from both sides since October 2023 has occurred when there has been a pause in fighting, not because of the fighting. So between the national and international legal perspectives, there is clearly a clash of rights. On the one hand, a position taken by the UK government of the right of British citizens to take up arms for Israel, a friendly state, in a territory, Gaza, not recognised as a state by the UK, to deal with what is an internal matter. And on the other hand, the inalienable right of Palestinian people to struggle against colonial domination as set out in those United Nations General Assembly resolutions. And thirdly, in answering whether British citizens can enlist with the Israeli forces and fight in Gaza, the UK government makes no reference to the ICJ provisional findings and orders of the 26th of January 2024, which anyone who is fighting in Gaza needs to be aware of. The World Court ICJ makes two significant findings. One, the Palestinians have a plausible right to be protected from genocide, and that South Africa had the right to present that claim in court. And two, the World Court considers that there is urgency in the sense that there is a real and imminent risk that irreparable prejudice will be caused to the rights of Palestinians found by the court to be plausible before it gives its final decision. While the World Court did not specifically make a provisional order against Israel to suspend its military operations in Gaza, in my belief, taking into account hostages taken, it did emphasize that Israel should abide by the laws of war. And there is a big question mark that it is abiding by the laws of war, considering all the investigations now taking place. In summary, 4 points can be made to challenge the UK government's position on the legality of British citizens taking up arms in Gaza on behalf of Israeli forces and why some say it is illegal. One, the UK position is undermined given the reported intent of those in Israel's command and control centre, which strongly suggests its actions are not to combat terrorism, but another military objective, as outlined above. Two, the UK government position is contrary to international law and the inalienable rights of Palestinian people to struggle against colonial domination in occupied territories, as per those United Nations General Assembly resolutions. Three, the UK government position fails to take proper account of the ICJ's provisional findings concerning genocide and multiple war crimes investigations now hanging over the region for months now. And four, the UK government's position is fast becoming harder to legally justify any continued Israeli military incursion in Gaza, especially in the Rafah area, when there is worldwide concern over a ground and air military operation in a densely populated civilian area among Israel's staunchest of allies. But what do you think? Can you legally fight for the IDF in Gaza? Feel free to comment, follow, like, and share.